computer, I should say. So I'd like to get started. We got a lot to go over tonight. I think it's going to be exciting. I can tell you that we were very excited to finally find a solution to our calibrating challenges since the night owl distribution issues have thrown a wrench in how we do things. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Guy Yatros. I'm a diplomate of the American Board of Dental Sleep Medicine. I've been doing dental sleep for 23 years now. We treat hundreds of patients each year. Like last year, we did between 400 and 500 cases, and we're doing that for over 20 years. And my offices are called New Concept Sleep. We have 3 offices in Tampa, 1 in Bradenton, and 1 in Sarasota, so 3 total. We just do dental sleep. And those of you who don't know, I'm a founder of Dental Sleep Solutions, which also produces the DS3 software, which also has 4-pillar billing as a subsidiary. We also put on the North American Dental Sleep Medicine Symposium, which I know some of you were at, which was a great meeting a month or so ago. We also are the owners of the Smart Sleep website, where you can purchase Belun Rings and night owls if they come back. I'll give you a link to that and some discount codes if you stay around until the end. And I also am an owner of the Freckle Fin Pub across the street from my house, so I always like to say that. So if you're ever on Anna Maria Island and around, I will buy you a beer or 2 over at the Freckled Fin. I'm very biased about all these companies because they're all wonderful. But I am biased because I was at least still owner of the Freckled Fin and New Concept Sleep. I do not own any of Dental Sleep Solutions anymore. We did sell the company, but I'm a chief advisor for them, and I do help with things like this. But I understand I don't. If you all decide to join DS3 or 4-pillar billing or buy Belun Rings, Guy Yatros is not making any money in his pocket from that anymore. Here's what we're going to do tonight. This is some of you who maybe came to the NADSM a few years ago. I went over a little bit of this down. So I'm going to go through the first 3 of those fairly quickly. But we had over 200 people register for this tonight. And I have to assume that some of you are not really know how to calibrate your dental devices. You're looking for a solution for that. And so I'm going to go through what I call my fast track calibration and some dental sleep medicine myths and how we look at the bite. I may go a little quick on that because, again, it may be repeat for some of you. Then we will talk about the Belun Ring, which is the new technology that we're working with now. That the exciting news is Dental Sleep Solutions has a partnership with distributing it to the dental community. They're the only dental distributor for them right now, and I'm really excited about it. And I can tell you why we chose that ring. A lot of research that I did personally and our team did to make. I think it's the best device. But we want to talk about how we use any device to start with, and then we'll talk about some discounts. And I'll stay on as long as necessary to help you after that. Turn this fan back on. Sorry, forgive me. There we go. And so that's going to be the thing. We'll go through the first part fairly quickly. Oh, by the way, if you want CE for this, they will send you an email. I think that I don't know that I have a link for that, but just contact Misha. Will you figure out where they want to send the email to get the CE in the next hour? And we'll talk about it at the end. We talked about it in our meeting today, but I forgot to put a slide in. We'll send you a link or a place you need to contact. They'll give you your CE and a copy of these slides. So you can take screenshots, anything you want, but I'll put this in a PDF and they'll be happy to share the slides with you after when you reach out to get your CE. You'll get an hour CE for this time. We are doing a couple in-person courses, going back to doing those. I'm really excited. I'm going to do a few this year. I love doing them. If you've ever seen me in a course, you'll know that I really enjoy that. And so I'm doing a couple this year. The first one being in April in Rochester area. It's a evening. We get together and then a full day. We actually are going to be doing Belun testing, making MyTap devices. It's great for team members. There's a limited number, and of course, dentists. If you're really wanting to learn how to implement dental sleep, I encourage you. I'll put stuff at the end as a QR code. There's a discount with that. I don't know how much it is, but if you do that, we're doing Crane Dental Lab as well. And then one of my partners, Dr. Joe Gramato, who runs our Tampa office, he's going to be doing one as well in the Rochester area, in a little different area in May. So, and then we'll be doing some in the fall too as well. So I'll bring those up again at the end. I think before we start, I got a lot of people on here now. I'll just reiterate, we had several hundred people register. I'm going to be open as long as you all want to talk about questions afterwards. If you have a question you want now, type it in the chat. I'll try to get to it. Or you can unmute yourself and just ask the question if you want to along the way, or write and we can answer at the end if it's not real pertinent to what we're talking about that moment. We'll go through all that. And for those of you who are as old as me, this show was out a few years ago. So I assume most of you have heard it. Well, Rich Drake and I started Dental Sleep Solutions, and we came up with our own myths for dental sleep therapy. And I think it's important we keep this in mind no matter what device, in this case, when we talk about the Belun Ring, but no matter what device we're using, there's some myths out there that you're going to have to kind of get over or learn about in order to be happy and be able to successfully calibrate your dental devices. The first one is a big one, is that we all agree on success. We could spend literally an hour to 3 hours talking about this, because how I define success, how my sleep doctors define success, how my patients define success, how my primary cares define success, we all may not agree. I think the big one's AHI. I'll talk about what I look at in the Belun reports to really hone in on the objective part of this. But we have to remember we're treating a person, not a number here. And success can mean a lot of things to different people. So keep that in mind, because we could have literally a whole webinar or probably a half-day course on really what is successful treatment. I think defining success for your patient, what do they want out of it? What do I expect to happen? And what do the sleep doctors want out of it is important to try to come to an agreement on each patient. Each patient might be a little different, by the way. So that should be part of your protocols. If that's kind of news to you, the people at Dental Sleep Solutions, the DS3, through our training, we can help you learn more about those questions you need to ask and protocols you need to put in. And this is something, the next one, myth that I have learned, I really did not believe how much per night variances can come into play with this, as well as the more forward, the more better the dental device is. Those are the next two. But we used to think, move the jaw as far forward as you can, more forward. I'll bring my old Kentucky accent in here. It means more better. That's not necessarily true. I've got documented dozens, if not hundreds of cases where at some point when you go more forward, the airway actually seems to get worse. Okay. And it's usually more forward is better opening, but it's not 110%. So that's where having these multi-night testing ability with something like the Belun can really help us understand that, because at some point more forward is worse in a lot more cases than I ever dreamed. So don't always think that's true. It is true a lot, but it's just not true always. And so that's why you've got to have multi-night testing at multiple positions to really do what I consider today's standard in treating sleep apnea with dental devices. And then I already alluded to this. There's a lot of per night variances. We used to think, this AHI number is like a cholesterol number. What stays the same in medicine? I'll tell you what doesn't stay the same is blood pressure, right? It's like taking blood pressure. Blood pressure can be higher or lower depending on the situation. Well, guess what? AHI, SpO2 readings, objective measurements of apnea can vary greatly per night. And I'm seeing this way more than I believed was true. I knew it was true, but it's way more obvious, apparent than I thought before, now that we're treating people on multiple nights. And this study was given to me by the SNAP diagnostic people years ago. There's a lot of good information out there. I know that Wesper has a study they showed on this to me recently. I just didn't have the time to update my slides, but I have at least 3 or 4 studies in my medical journal folder that I keep on my computer that can validate what this is saying. And what this one was, there was 183 patients gave a home sleep test to for 3 nights in a row. And on one of the nights they had no apnea, their AHI was less than 5. And on 72% of those people, on one of the other nights, it was over 5. And 24% of those people on another night, it was a moderate, so it was over 15. And 4% went from AHI less than 4 than over 4 to over 30, 4%. So there's a big night per night variance. It has to do with body position, tiredness, alcohol intake, nasal patency. There's a lot of things that go into that. So just keep in mind, this is not an exact science when it comes to this one, especially when it comes to per night variances. And then the thing is which is the best sleep device? Do they all give the same results? What do you think would happen if I strap myself into 3 validated, these are validated by the FDA, that are FDA cleared for diagnostic purposes, because these aren't over-the-counter wearables we're talking about. If I were to strap myself into 3 home sleep testing devices that were used for diagnostic purposes, would I get the same results? Well, you don't have to think, because I did that a few years ago. And this is before I had a Belun, so I didn't repeat this experiment yet. But I used a Night Owl, a Z machine, and a watch pad on me the same night. That was a fun night's sleep, right? With all that stuff strapped to me at one time. And I got 3 different AHIs, so they were from 18 to 10 to 12. And supine was even different. The Night Owl doesn't measure supine. I got 3 different SpO2 readings, an ADAR 90, 82 to 87, and the percent below 90, 0 to 14, almost 15 minutes to little less, almost a minute there. Okay. And I got 3 different ODIs. Even if you look at the same percentage, 15, 13, 8.7. And these are all machines that work, but they work a little differently, so you can get different data. Now, you do have to read into things too, because the Night Owl, at the time I was using it, you did a 3% desaturation that they were set up for instead of the 4%. So that could account for a little bit of that. But even if you throw that statistic out, you're going to get a little different data on everything. So where does this leave us? Does that mean that these devices are useless? Okay, because they all give different data. Which one's better? So we looked at all these. Which one of these is better? Or is the PSG still the gold standard? Is that really what we have to be using? Well, they all have flaws. Even the PSG has flaws, because you don't sleep as well when you're all strapped up in the sleep lab with a creepy guy down the hall watching you do everything you do all night long. Sorry, I'm no disparaging to the technologists out there. I'm being a little sarcastic there, but you're not going to sleep as well. So even if it's got more accurate data, so we don't know which one of these is the most accurate. But I'll give you a solution in just a moment. I'll see if you can think of where I'm going here. This is the picture of me and Elena. Elena's on here somewhere, I hope. You on here tonight, Elena? You make it yet? You can unmute yourself if you are. I don't see you.
Yes, I'm here.
I see. I don't see other things. Elena's going to be, she's my director of operations. So if we have questions about, how we put these on the patients, the web portal, all that stuff, she's going to help answer these questions in a little while at the end along the way, because I don't know the answers to those. Thank you, Elena, for being on here. She's wonderful. She's a dentist from Macedonia, and she's been a great asset to our office. Do you mind if I ask how tall you are, Elena?
No problem. 5'2".
She's 5'2", so I'm 6'3". Okay, would you call me tall? Well, compared to Elena, I am, certainly. Compared to most people, I guess I am. So I think most people would say, hey, I'm tall. But if you compare me to my 17-year-old son, I'm not tall, right? He's 6'7". So, and that picture was about a year ago. So he's a little taller than that now. I think he's about done growing. So it's all relative to comparison. We're looking at the PSG, and we're comparing it to the Belun, and we're comparing it to the watch pad. I think the beauty of what I'm going to teach you about rapid calibrations with our dental devices is that we want to compare it to itself. So if you compare me to me, we're going to get a more even result. Or more realistically, whatever device we're going to use, we want to compare it to itself. And then I can find a good position for the jaw. And this has some added benefits. So we will go through the protocols of how I use the Belun here in a little bit. And one of the protocols is the last night we usually have them not wear the device at all, their mouthpiece rather. They wear the ring, but not their dental device, because then we have apples to apples comparative with that, as opposed to me trying to compare that to a PSG. That's one of the beauties of what we do. Now, if the patient has severe apnea and they just had a stroke and they're an attorney or their wife's an attorney, maybe I don't want to take them off their treatment for a night or something like that. You got to be smart. But most of the time we'll do the last night. And you want to do the last night, by the way, because if you do the first night, they might not sleep near as well if they've been wearing a dental device, and then they might not sleep well the next night. It'll throw off your data. So you want to give them the last night. So what does that do? Number one is we have a baseline. We're going to normally test these people about 7 nights in a row, and I'm going to explain that in detail about halfway through this talk here. And the other thing is it helps us find the best position. I can compare my results night per night, and I'll show you how I do that in a little bit. And I can see where we believe the best open airway is We also, the patient gives some input. If their jaw is hurting or if they felt that they're snoring less in a position and that's their chief complaint, we might bring that into consideration. But we can find the best position. And then the other thing I love about what we do is we call these airway monitors. I don't tell the patient I'm giving them a sleep test. Now, you can do what you want here, by the way. Some people argue, oh, we should tell them we're giving them a sleep test because we're not building value. Well, the majority of my patients are referred by sleep doctors or physicians in general. And the majority of those doctors want my patients to go back to have a follow-up sleep test with them. Furthermore, it's my belief when we go to defining therapeutic position is that the doctors get a say-so into what's the best position for that patient as well. And so I don't like telling the patient, hey, I just gave you a level 4 home sleep test, which is what a Belun is. You can use this device for diagnosis if you want to. But I don't like telling the patient that. I just call it an airway monitor. And I let them know, compared to itself, we find the best position. Then we're going to send you back to your doctor, send them letters. And if they feel it's necessary, which most of the time they do, they're going to do a follow-up sleep test of their choice, level 3, level 2 in the lab, whatever they're using, at the position we've found to be the best position. And then we'll all decide how well you've been treated for this apnea and if we should do anything additional. I think it takes the onus off me as the dentist going, hey, your apnea is well treated. I don't think I should be doing that by myself for these patients in general. Does it happen sometimes? Yes, it does. It's not a perfect world out there, but in general, I want to bring the doctors in and we all talk about that together. And that's why we call it an airway monitor. It's just a term I made up, by the way. We used to call it a night owl airway monitor. Now we're saying we're going to give you a Belun airway monitor, and we tell them it helps us find the best jaw position, but we won't be able to tell you definitively how well your apnea is treated until we bring the doctors back into play. Any questions on that thought before I move on? Because I think it's an important thought. It'll make your lives a lot better. It made ours better anyway by doing it that way. Everybody can hear me okay?
No, Dr. Yatros,
Yes.
I don't think it's on the same topic, but I have a question in the chat asking, will the Belun Ring give an RDI? I don't know if that's coming later.
The answer is no. And so it's not perfect from that aspect. And I'll explain why. But again, we're using this compared to itself. So it's not going to, RDIs, most of the time, what we care about there are the patient's symptoms because they're having respiratory effort related arousals as opposed to apneas. And so if we're treating symptoms, we're going to work on that first before we give them the Belun. But I'll explain that again. It's a great question. Yeah, keep me on track. I don't sit there. The chat kind of gets confusing if I start trying to read it. Then yes, I think that's it. Keep me in line there. There's some pertinent questions. Let me know. And not at the end, I'm going to go and review them all. But if there's something pertinent to what we're speaking about right now, please, by all means, stop me. Thank you. Any other questions on that subject before we move on down here? Okay, so that's can we accept the same results night to night with dental sleep therapy? No. And here's a formula I just made up basically, but I think it's kind of valid. And we have per night variability. And if you add that to the fact that the testing units aren't all the same, and the fact that our devices don't move based on need. So that's where CPAP's got us beat. The CPAP can crank up the pressure on a given night if they're sleeping on their back or they drank a pint of gin or they were exhausted because they have jet lag. We can't do that. And so it gives us some variable testing results. We need to have these discussions with our sleep doctors too to let them know, hey, this number is not an exact science. If they had an HI 40 and we got them down to, with the Belun down to 3, but when they tested them, their HI was 7, I'm still patting myself on the back here, and I think it's a good result. So once our doctors get on board, which I have a lot of them that are, they agree with that as well because of this formula that I kind of came up with. Now, the testing unit variability we're going to minimize because we're going to use the same test when we're doing it on the patients for calibration, and we'll do our own baseline so we can really feel where we're getting with the device. And last thing is, this is easy. I've been lecturing about this subject for 15 or more years, and I probably have made a mistake over the years about too many times of saying this is easy. It's easy compared to dentistry. Okay? If you can learn to do this, think of the hours and hours it took you to be good at doing this, to where you could be cutting a crown prep and be thinking about your golf swing or your fishing hole or whatever you're thinking about, when you're in that unconscious competent mode, you're doing a crown prep, it took you years to get good at that. Compared to most things in dentistry, this is very easy. But it's not like you take 1 2-hour course and you're going to have it down. You still got to go out and do it. You got to look at these results and start getting a feel. How do you know when you're done with that crown prep, by the way? Remember can you remember back to dental school, back when World War II was going on when I was graduating? I'm not quite that old, but I'm kidding. But it was a long time ago. It was 5 years ago I graduated dental school. And I remember I used to have to think about, when am I done? Is this good enough? And before I quit doing dentistry 13 years ago, when I would finish crown prep, I just knew I was done. You will get to that point looking at these tests going, yep, this is as good as I'm going to be able to get. That position is the best I can do. Just like, if this person's gagging, they've got a big tongue, they're a pain in the butt patient, you can't get them numb, they're moving all over the place, they're late for a meeting, that maybe the crown prep, and they're 95 years old with terminal cancer, that maybe good enough's a little different for that patient than somebody else. And you learn when to stop grinding on that tooth. You will learn where the best position, but you have to do enough to get to where it becomes second nature for you. All right. So let me define therapeutic position. And I actually learned something every time I give a lecture. I learned something. I did a couple of lectures for the AADSM about a year or so ago, and I'd had to do some research. And this is what the AADSM defines as the jaw position that we want to put our patients in. They call it therapeutic position. And essentially, it's the jaw position that improves signs and symptoms and objective measures or indices, which will be the Belun or the follow-up sleep test in this case, that we all agree on, the dentist, the patient, and the medical provider, that the patient can comfortably wear on a nightly basis. So it's not guys saying, wear it at 4 turns on your herpes device or tap device or whatever it is, and wear it and you're cured. That's not what we do here. We help find the best jaw position that all of our healthcare providers and the patient feel is the position that treats them the best that they can comfortably wear. Keep that in mind, because it's not only our job. Our job is to try to help them find that position. And this is the way we've been doing this for years. When it comes to a patient, we give them a dental device. We usually see them 3 or 4 weeks later, and we make sure they're wearing it. Okay? If they're not wearing it, don't do anything else but figure out why they're not wearing it. Okay, we can have a 2-hour webinar on that. Not going to go into that tonight. And then what we used to do was spend hours and hours with subjective findings. Are you snoring? Are you sleepy? I'll go into some of the things we still do track. And I still do that only if it meets 2 criteria. I don't do that as much as I used to. I used to play in this little circle here all the time because I did not have good home sleep testing equipment. I can only test one position one night. It was costly, cumbersome, and difficult to do. So we spent a lot of time in that second step. Now I spend very little time in that second step unless the patient meets 2 criteria. Number 1 is that symptom is of concern to them. So let's say snoring. The only reason I'm here is because my wife wants me to quit snoring. She won't sleep in the same room with me. We're going on a cruise next month or next year, and I got to do something about the snoring. If that's the case, do I usually help snoring with dental devices? Most of the time. I think there's more of a direct correlation to snoring than there are other things. Then I will play around and adjust the device before we ever give them a Belun to help address that chief complaint. That makes sense? Okay, because that's what we're trying to. So if they're still snoring, we're going to move the device forward. We're going to add elastics. We're going to look at their nasal patency, body position, some things I'll talk about at the end. We're going to try to address that. Now, the opposite of that, if someone comes in, they have fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, they got an Epworth of 24, they're obese, tired all the time, they have insomnia, and they want this device to make them feel sleep better. Okay, I think it's going to be hard to tell on that patient by tweaking their device if you're moving the needle. And I lower the expectation for that patient too. Hey, we may make all that better. We're going to have to find the best position and hope it helps. At the very least, we're going to make your health better for that person. So I don't play around in that step anymore unless it's related to their apnea, and I think I can move the needle, and if it's important to them. If they come in, I say, I was told I snore, but my wife passed away, and I don't care about the snoring. I'm not going to play around for the snoring anymore. Okay, so we're going to spend a lot more time on this objective evaluation than we did before. Okay, and that's what I'm going to be spending the rest of the 35 minutes talking about. I am going to talk about the fast track calibration. We've been doing this in my office in one form or fashion for probably 4 years. We started out with high resolution pulse oximeters. We use some Z machines. We use the Night Owl, and now the Belun's become our premier choice for this. And you'll understand why when I talk about the advantages to it here in about 20 minutes. So what do I mean by fast track calibration? Well, we used to take, a home test. Want to go home for one night and then bring it back. Come home, come back. We have a way of testing with the Belun 7 nights in a row at different positions. But before we get into that, the question always comes up, and since it was such a well-attended webinar tonight, like I said, there's over 100 people on here now, that some of you may not know how to take the bite. And taking the bite used to stress me out a lot, because we used to try to take the bite as far forward as we could that we could get away with, because we felt more forward was more better, and we didn't have good ways of testing. So let's just go as far forward and hope for the best. You don't have to do that now. That's the good news. You don't have to do it. So when we're looking at taking the bite and looking at the range of motion, we're looking at how much the jaw moves forward and back. So how much the jaw does that, if you can see that. And we're looking about how open we're going to make the bite. We're going to take a bite at a position from here to here and a certain vertical. Now, we could talk for days about the vertical. There's a lot of people that believe, the vertical can be adjusted a lot. And I don't discredit that changing the vertical can help or hurt the dental device. It's just much harder to change the vertical. Someone's asking a question about the matrix, by the way. You can't get the matrix anymore, so it's kind of a moot point. I'll be happy to talk about it after the thing. So I just make sure we open the bite enough to make room for the material we're going to use. If they have a really big tongue and still looks crowded, we might open the bite a little bit more on occasion. But after we do that, I don't play with the vertical a lot. Can you improve the efficacy of devices by playing with the vertical? You can. You can also hurt the efficacy of devices by playing with the vertical. So I like a device that kind of keeps the mouth at a fixed vertical, either with elastics or the design of the device. And I'm not going to play with vertical a lot in our fast track calibration. Not to say there's not some ways that can help, but it's very clunky and it's a lot of work for very little results in my hands. So we're talking mostly about this. This we open up enough to make room for the materials we're going to use in a specific device. So usually about 4 millimeters from the narrowest point in the back will be a good enough clearance. So what I mean is, 4 millimeters for the narrowest part back here. Well, most devices will have enough room for all the acrylic, for 2 millimeters of acrylic on both devices. So we're going to use a gauge. I don't care which gauge you use. We use George gauges still. I think they work better for our scanning. And if you want to know how we scan this, I have a video of that. I'll be happy to play it after the 9 o'clock hour, but I don't go play it tonight. And you can use either one of these gauges. And when you measure, it's going to tell you the most retruded to the most protruded the patient can get. And the scenario we're using tonight, they go back from end to end at 0 to -6 to +6. So if you were looking at your gauge and you put that in the patient's mouth, you can see that's a minus there. It goes to -6 to +6. So that's a total distance of 12 millimeters. I'm going to play it one more time just for anybody that's kind of new to this. So when we do the George gauge, we're going to measure the most retruded to the most protruded. So that's -6 to +6 in our scenario tonight. And it's going to look like this on the pro gauge. There's your minus, there's -6. It's going to go over here to +6 in my little graph that I'm so proud that I can figure out how to do. And it looks like that's 12 millimeters total. And one last demonstration to make sure we're all on the same page, even though the upper jaw is moving instead of the lower there, but bear with me. That's what it's going to look like as you move the jaw forward and backwards on your gauge. All right. And so in this scenario, the total range of motion is 12 millimeters. And so if we took the bite at the most retruded position, it would be at 0. At the most protruded position, it would be 100. We took it at 50% protrusion, it would be at 0. And 25% is about there and 75% is about there. Everybody with me? So we used to try to take it at 50 to 75% because we thought more forward is more better. And we didn't have good ways of measuring. So let's just push them as far forward as we can and hope for the best. Well, I don't do that as much anymore. Most people, we take the bite between 30%, which is we about here in this scenario, to usually not more than 50%. And the vast majority of the bites we take, and this is what you want to remember if you're new to this, I take the majority of our patients' bite at what I call their habitual bite. And when I was doing this for the AADSM, they even have some studies that show a lot of people benefit taking it to their habitual bite. What do I mean by the habitual bite? That's basically your CO, MI, where they normally occlude, whatever we call it these days. It's been a while since I've done dentistry. Why? How in the world could that work? Well, it's because most people, when they fall asleep, their jaw falls back and closes off their airway. The mouth opens, jaw goes back, airway closes. So we just keep their jaw from falling back and their mouth from opening. We can make a big difference in a lot of our patients. So someone may have 2 millimeters of overjet, so that'd be -2, but they go back to -6 when they're asleep at night. You can take the bite at -2 and very likely help a lot of people at that position. So don't get carried away going forward, because as long as your device can move forward. Now, if you do a device that can only go 5 millimeters forward or 3 millimeters forward, you might get to get a little more aggressive. We can test them as more forward as we need to. So you just don't have to get as carried away as we used to. Again, the majority of my cases, we start somewhere near their habitual occlusion, maybe a little bit in front of it occasionally, but rarely way forward from their habitual occlusion. And then they're going to take the bite, whether you're doing impression material or whether you're scanning. If someone wants to know how we do this, I have a couple of videos at the end. I'll be happy to show you them after the 9 o'clock if you don't know how we take this bite, but I don't want to take up tonight to do that. So just let me know. I'll stay on and show you that. I don't do the phonetic bite. I'm not very familiar. I'm familiar with what it is, but it doesn't fit into our model, and our model works for us. I'm sure the phonetic bite works for other people. And as far as the device goes, that we're going to select for this fast track, I want a device that can adjust a lot. It's got to go at least 5 millimeters. I like Herp's devices. We do a lot of those. I like some of the 3D printed devices. Herp's device, you can infinitely go forward because you can put shims on it. If you don't know how to do that, let me know. You can actually go beyond the end. There's little shims you can clamp over. So I can go more forward than the jaw forward. Tap devices work great too. Anything less than 5 millimeters, you might run out of ability to move more forward. And the most important thing is, I want the patient to be able to tell me where they were definitively each night. Some of the older Herps where it's kind of ambiguous, I don't like that, because they may not get it right about where they were. Now we got a bunch of data that's useless to us. We've got to know, if they're going to test 7 nights in a row, we got to know exactly where they were each night and be able to replicate that. Otherwise, we've got a bunch of data that's fairly useless. So we've taken the bite, and now we're going to talk about what we do next. That's where I think a lot of people get a little stressed out. I will tell you, this shouldn't be stressful. And once you do this for a few dozen times, you're going to feel much more comfortable doing it. By the way, I've gotten to try to use the word calibrate. The AADSM said, hey, we're going to call this calibrating the dental devices. We used to call it titrating. That's what the sleep labs call it for dental device, for CPAP rather. Either one's fine with me, but I've gotten to where I try to talk about calibrating. And we give the patients their device. I used to see them at 1 week years ago. I'm a staunch believer in giving them 3 or 4 weeks to acclimate before we see them again, with the instructions that you're going to wear this every night. We tell them what to expect about tooth soreness and this and that and the other thing. If you can't wear it for any reason, you call me and come in. Otherwise, we're going to see them 3 or 4 weeks, and you're going to have worn it every night. And then from then, we're going to start adjusting the device. If they're not wearing it, then we got to figure out why. That's the subject. We're not going to go in that tonight. If they have snoring and it's still there and we think we can help it, we'll adjust the device based on their snoring like we used to in the old days. And we certainly do that some when that's the chief complaint. Or if it's sleepiness and we really feel that it's directly possibly related to this or other issues, we'll do that. Again, it has to meet those 2 criteria. Most of the time, as long as they're comfortably wearing the device, we're either going to give them the Belun Ring that day, or if for some reason we don't have any that day, we'll schedule them back to come back in. But now, if they're not wearing it, we're not going to give it to them. We want to make sure they're comfortably wearing it every night before we start this calibration process. But a lot of times that happens 3 to 4 weeks after the delivery of the device. Here's some of the symptoms we might calibrate it for if you're going to do the subjective calibration. We used to spend hours on this. We actually designed the DS3 software so we could actually track this, because we had no better way of knowing if the devices are working. And we still use that some, but again, with the good technology like the Belun Ring, it's not necessary to do this unless it's very important to those patients and we think we can help them with it. So what's changed? Well, a lot of things have changed. Anybody have this phone? I had one of these. It was a great weapon. You could knock somebody out with it. And I want to say it was like 35 cents a minute, wasn't it? To use it. It was maybe 50 cents. It was really, really expensive, right? Well, things have changed in the last 30 years. Now we have watches that can measure, talk to them on the phone. You can take pictures. You can even look at your heart rate and pulse oximetry on that. So sleep has changed a lot too. This is a picture of the first type of sleep recorder I had. Dr. Rimmers, someone asked about the Matrix system. Again, Dr. Rimmers is a close friend of mine, very good friend of mine. He invented this Rimmers recorder. I bought one of those 20 years ago. It was $7,500. It had what's called a parallel port for the young people. If you don't know what that is, it plugged in. It took about 10 minutes to program it. The patient had to plug it into the wall to use it, had cords and things. And then it took about 25 minutes to download the data when you brought it back in, and you could do one night. Okay. Made it very difficult for us to do this. Well, we don't have to do that now. And that's one of the reasons we can be far more accurate, far more productive than we could have back when we were doing that. And so when we're looking for calibration equipment, what are we looking for? These are the criteria when I decided what. Now, let me back up for a minute. If we're doing diagnosis, the other reasons for sleep tests, that's fine. I'm specifically looking for a piece of equipment that meets these criteria for finding the best jaw position for my patients. Lots of other sleep tests out there are wonderful, but they don't meet as many criteria on here in today's world for helping accomplish the goal of finding the best jaw position for patients I'm treating with a dental sleep device. So number one, it has to be at home, right? Of course, that's pretty obvious these days. Number two, it has to be able to do multiple nights, at least 5 nights. I don't want to have to take my memory recorder, bring it in, take it back, bring it in, take it back. Cloud-based reporting has become very important to me because we have 3 offices and we have a central office that does everything. And so all that data can be done by one person. And no matter which computer they upload it on, we can access that data. You may not understand the importance of that. Even in your own office, if you, with the Belun, and Elena's on here to answer questions about how that actually works. But Elena, everyone has the software on their computers, but we can upload it on any computer and it goes to the same cloud where we can pull it off from any of our offices, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. And she can answer technical questions about how long this stuff takes and so forth for a little while. That's really important. It needs to be inexpensive. And it's not that I'm cheap. It's that we don't charge extra for this, nor will any of the insurance companies typically pay us for this testing. We're doing this just to do a good job for our patients to make sure we're giving top of the line service. So if I have to pay $75 a night to test them, which some of the sleep testing equipment, it's very good testing equipment, I can't do it. I can't do it. We'll go bankrupt with it. So it's got to be inexpensive. Belun big checkbox there. It's actually, I'm going to show you, Belun's actually less expensive than the NightOwl that we were previously using per patient by almost a factor of 3. By a factor of 3. It could be a little less than that depending if you have to retest people, but it's pretty good. What channels does it measure? Only negative here, I would say most of the ones that I like for this don't measure body position. Okay, so I would love it to have body position, but when you start getting body position, it becomes very difficult for the patient to use. And what type they are, and I think easy for the patient to use, I don't even have on there, and I should be on that list. So I looked at a lot of different ones out there. These were the 3 finalists. I looked at other equipment. They're all very good. I'm not saying a disparaging thing. Sleep Image is very similar to Belun. I'll tell you the big thing Belun has that Sleep Image doesn't. Wesper had body position, loved their reports, but it's just more cumbersome for what we're trying to accomplish. Just having a ring and put on a finger is really nice. And where the Belun Ring comes in, here's the reason we selected it. And we tried to, Elena can attest, we tried them on ourselves. Our staffs all wore these. We tried them on our patients. We tried other ones that aren't on that picture as well. Those were kind of the finalists. And we chose Belun for these reasons. One is very comfortable and small. Even though it looks a little bigger than the NightOwl, everyone in our office, did anybody not agree with that, Elena? Everybody in the office said it's more comfortable than the NightOwl just to wear.
Yes, because it's not as tight. And the NightOwl, the problem is you can put it to be really tight or too loose. With the Belun, with the size of the arm, you can definitely get the right size that it fits comfortable, not being too tight or too loose.
We're going to show you how you have to select it. You actually select the right size ring for each person I've got some slides showing technically how you do that a little bit. But yeah, and the night owl, yeah, you got it too tight, and you can see the little red light through that. And I always felt like I was ET with the night owl. I'd wake up and I'm like, what is this? Oh, okay, it's the night owl. Go back to bed. Not that the night owl's bad. The night owls work great, but this is actually more comfortable. So that's great. Small, comfortable. I'm going to go into the cost. It's actually costing us less per patient, and you'll see the numbers here in a little bit. The ease of use, I think my staff would revolt if we went back to the night owl, even if they came back around, because they love the ease of use. And it's to do with this next line here. You can use it with an app. Okay. You can use it with an app, just like the night owl, and you can have the patient sync it. But Elena, explain to them what our biggest issues with the night owl. How many hours do we spend with app issues and tracking them down to see job position and things like that?
Our staff was complaining, and I was able to see in our office that most of our patients, and especially it's an older generation of people, having issues connecting the equipment with the app. Getting so many phone calls every single day. Our front staff was getting phone calls. I didn't get the code. The code didn't work. I didn't connect it. And then we need to go into the app, reissue that. They would come in the office. We showed them again how to download the app, how to connect it. Since we started using the Belun, we don't get any of those phone calls, neither the front desk, neither the clinical assistants. Patients love it because they don't need to use their electronics to connect it, and making sure it's connected and the connection was good. We've been getting a lot of errors on the night owl, because if they lose the connection for some other reason during the night, then the report is not sufficient. There was an error, not enough recording. With the Belun Ring, so far, we have not had any issue of not getting a recording of the whole night.
And so let me interrupt you, because I want to make sure we understand why that is.
Yes.
You don't have to use it with the app. The night owl, you had to download the app, sync it to your phone. It was confusing. This, you'll see a picture of it in a minute. We program it. That takes a little bit of time, and Elena can attest to how much time, but far less time when you figure. So we got to, prepare. It takes, how long does it take to, you plug the charger in with the Belun on it, and you program it for a patient? How long does that take?
It's the same as the night owl, because you have to put, for the night owl, it was the same that you have to program it to the patient. A few minutes, just you have to assign it to a patient, and you have the option to choose right when you're assigning the patient, either to use it with the app or without the app. We decided to use it without the app, and we have not issues at all.
But that doesn't take any longer than programming the night owl to start. We've not lost any time there. And what they do is they take
to add the patient's name, date of birth. The only difference with the night owl is they're asking for the patient's weight and height, because it measures the BMI.
Okay. So then they take the Belun home with the charger, and then all they have to do is plug that charger into a wall, and they just take it out of the charger, stick it on their finger. Get up in the morning, take it off their finger, stick it back in the charger, and the charger will hold, the base will hold up to 14 nights of data, about 100 hours. Is that 100 some hours?
120 hours. The cradle holds 120 hours, and it can charge the actual ring for up to 7 nights. But we recommend for them to have it plugged the whole time, so it makes sure that it's fully charged, and that's it.
So they theoretically could just take the ring and put it on the charger, and we got it back, and that would work. We don't do it that way. So there's nothing to go wrong here. There's none of this app issues, none of this. My phone didn't sync. How do I get this? And here's the other thing that happens is we give them the calibration log, and we're going to go through, where we want them each night, and the last night not wearing it, and then they put the notes. They bring that back to the office with them. We're not calling them going, where were you night 1? Where were you night 2? And they actually use it. If you give them the night owl, I'll get to that next week. I'll get to that next week. Yeah, I meant to do it. I didn't do it. Listen, Mrs. Jones, you have this for a week. You have to use it every night for the week. Are you ready to use it for the week? And they will just use it more readily, because they realize they have it for a finite period of time, as opposed to having it for, as long as they want. And so really we have so much less time, because when they bring it back in, we have all the data. And before they let them walk back out the door, we say, let me see your calibration log. How'd you feel? Is there any questions? So we get all that information from them right then and there. And you can have them mail it back. We do that some for patients who are far away. But the time, our staff's spending far less time with this, and we're getting it done quicker because the patients aren't postponing it. And the big difference here, I told you Sleep Image was a good ring too, but the ability to not use the app was like, this is a no-brainer. It made it so much better. Comfortable ring, inexpensive. And by the way, I get to the last one. The company's great. I know the founder, CEO, was able to help orchestrate this deal with Dental Sleep Solutions. They're just smart, great. Those of you who know them for a long time, we don't work with people who don't have the most ethical standards. We certainly try not to anyway, unless they fool us or something. But we try to work with people who are the kind of people we want to work with, and it's a really good company. Anything else you want to add on that part of it, Elena? And then I'll talk about how we use it, how I read the data. Okay, we'll have any questions you want. So there's the charger. So the protocols are the staff sets them up, takes a few minutes. It's about the same length of time that we will not out. The patient comes in usually for their first check or a check thereafter. They're going to keep it for a week. We hand them this. The only thing that's missing here is a little charger that plugs in. All they got to do is pick that up, put it on their finger, put it back down in the morning. It's easy peasy. Then we tell them you're going to wear this for 7 nights. And we usually have them wear it right where we think they're good the first night. And I usually do 1 millimeter increments each additional night. Or sometimes if they're wearing a herps and they're not wearing the elastics, I may wear elastics next night move it, then wear elastics. You can do whatever you want here. If the patient can't go far enough forward, I'll have them wear a couple of nights at each position because they're going to keep it for a week regardless. Our protocols, we have them on a week turnaround. It makes it easy for us. So they're going to keep it for a week, and I want them to test every night. And sometimes it might be in the same position if for some reason we want to do that. There are times where you have to have patients back and we want to move them more forward, or if I don't understand the results, I'll test them again. We'll say, do 3 nights at this position, 3 nights at that. And then the last night, the 7th night, we usually like them to do it without wearing the mandibular advancement device. So now we have that apples to apples compared to itself. Very valuable, in my opinion, to do that. You want to do it the last night again, because if you do it the first night, they may not sleep as well, and then they'll be tired for subsequent nights. So I think it helps mitigate any issues there. We have these distributed in our offices on Mondays and Thursdays because I see patients 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So my staff does this. The ones we pick up on Monday, we give to the next patient on Thursday. And then we usually set up an appointment after they bring it back in to 2 weeks to go over their results. My staff usually does that virtually or on the phone, but that gives me 2 weeks to review them. So once they bring it back, they upload it. We have a full-time employee. All they do is take the data from the Belun cloud, put it in DS3 cloud, show how it looks in DS3. And then Thursdays and Mondays, that's what I do. I sit in front of my computer and I just review home sleep tests results and make decisions, which is really, really fun. And so you can see if we give device 1 to the same device to patient Monday, they bring it back Monday. We have 2 days of buffer in case they bring it in late. We give that to patient on Thursday to Thursday, and then we give that one. We have a couple days buffer there. We give them to Monday. Is it perfect? No, people don't always bring it back on time. But in general, we can test 3 patients a month with 1 ring quite readily. And we haven't had tons of issues with this. I think the patients value that they have to do it then more, and they're actually doing it more than they were with the night owl. And you can set up these protocols however you want. Our Tampa office is a little different than this. This is for my Braden and Sarasota offices that we do it this way because, again, I do that on a day that I'm not there. I don't need to be there for them to pick it up and to bring it back. Any questions on that thus far?
The only question I have in the chat right now is just its availability in Canada.
I don't know the answer to that, but if you'll
get it then.
email us the information to who do they want to send that to, Misha?
We just dropped it in the chat.
Okay, we'll get that to the leadership at DSS. If you can get with somebody and get his or her information, we'll reach back out to you. I think it's available, but I don't know. I don't think it's available through us there, but we'll help you out regardless.
You got it.
So now this is a screenshot of our DS3 software. I'm biased. I helped invent the software. So again, don't own the software anymore, but we have a full-time I think we have a couple people, don't we, Elena, that just upload this data all day long for us. So
Yes.
they take the data from the Belun portal, which you can look at it there. But I'm busy and I'm all about being efficient. And then they put it in our DS3 software. This is a screenshot of a patient's DS3 software. And so what we would have here on the far right in the yellow, that's the baseline sleep test that the sleep doctor provided us with, right? So they're almost severe from that. And then these are the 7 nights. And I have 7, 1, 2, 3. I only have 6 there. Sorry about that. No. Oh, I just don't have it going all the way to the end. That's the problem. So it's the 7, well, sorry, that's right. 6 nights and then of the ring. And then that's your new baseline. Sorry, I've got it on a different screen over. It's a little harder to see. So these, if you'll look down here at the bottom, this is an example. The HI is here, if you can see it from the far side over here. This is the O2 nadir, and this is percent below 90. And this is the device setting. So this happens to be a Herbst device. And we like the Herbst Advanced because you can see the scale. And so they were right where they started from. They were doing all right. So we started them there. 0, and then you can see they did 1 turn each night. Not 1 turn, 10 turns. They moved 1 on the scale. So it'd be actually 10 turns each night. They got up to 5, and then they didn't wear a device at all. Look at this. The apnea is a little worse than it was in their baseline test. And now what I got to do is look at this and make a decision. I look at the AHI. I also look at the ODI because sometimes they're a little bit different down here. In this particular case, they kind of correlate. And then we also make notes in there about how the patient felt. If there's any problem. I don't know if you can see this, but this patient said they had jaw discomfort on that last night. And we tell them if they can't wear it the furthest one, then just repeat the night before. You know, if they get out to 4 and they don't feel they can go to 5, fine. Just write down wherever you are. When I look at this from, I'm looking at this now, 33 to 5.3. And both of these are at 90. This is at 0.2 and 0.7. I'm probably going to select this as the position because to me, these are essentially the same and they had little jaw positions. I'm going to usually select the least forward position that I feel is working. And it's not always this straightforward. I promise you that, but a lot of times it is. And if it's not this straightforward and you're new to this and you're still cutting that crown prep and don't know if you're done, well, that's okay. Have them move to this position and have them come back and pick it up again and have them test it at that position 2 or 3 nights in a row, or at that position and more forward if we felt that it wasn't helping, or that position and do something additional like have elastics added to it, or get them sleeping on their side more if they're a back sleeper, or make sure that they can breathe through the nose to give them mutes or nose cones. So it's not always about moving the jaw forward. We try to do a lot of other things to help our patients sleep better at night. This is another, 2-hour lecture that we could talk about all these other things, but it's not always just about moving it forward. Nose tape, we've been using a lot more lately. Flonase I use on most of my patients. I talk about Flonase or ways of keeping their noses open. So that's kind of the system that we use for that. I will tell you, I spend 2 or 3 hours Mondays and or Thursdays. All I do is look at things like this. And it's one of the most enjoyable things I do. Because how do you feel when you were in college and you took a test and you got a good score? Like, yes, right? It's like me taking, I look at 15 patient results. It's like doing 15 tests. And I get to go in there and I look, and the ones that are great, I'm just like, yes, this is fantastic. I get to use my brain. I get to decipher where the best position is. And then again, if I'm not positive, if we have anything to do, then sometimes we'll repeat things. Or we'll get out to 5. If the 5 wasn't perfect, we'll try to get them on their side. And if they can comfortably wear it at 5, then we'll test them at 6, 7, and 8 down the road too. So there are times we have to have them back, but it's a really fun thing to do because I get that endorphin rush every time that one of these has gone from a 30 to a 4 on here. And it makes you just feel like, wow, I've really done something for you. And then the patients come in and they're feeling better, and the doctor sends you a nice letter about how well it's worked. All right, I'm gonna spend about 5 or 6 minutes kind of talking about the Belun specific, and then we'll talk about the discount codes, and I'll answer all the questions that you have. It is FDA cleared for in the U.S. says Asia. It doesn't say Canada there, but we'll find out. I asked them if the doctors want to use it for Medicare. We can't do Medicare diagnosis, but it's cleared for Medicare. So it's not just an oximeter like your Apple Watch that you buy over the counter. This does a lot more, and I'm going to explain a little bit about what it does. Belun will be happy, or I'll be happy to get you all the data you want about the accuracy of the test. I looked through all this when I was looking at the specifics on it, and I felt very confident it worked. I'm having what I feel is more consistent results. I'm having less variability than I did in the Night Owl. The Night Owl, Michael, I believe it records multiple times a second, but I can find that out for sure. I'm not having quite as much variability. So one thing, it's one of the only devices that's actually approved other than the WatchPat for sleep staging. You know, they look at the per night variability, and it has less than most of them out there. I want to get to this. This is what it measures. It measures blood oxygen, which everybody does. It's pulse oximeter, and pulse rate, and movement. The movement's not quite as good because it's in the hand, not in the chest. So we don't know what position we're in. But it can extrapolate sleep staging qualities, AHI, and it does that through sympathetic nervous system response versus parasympathetic nervous system response. Now I'm going to start talking about something is over my head to some extent, but I understand it at a high level. I had Jagdeep explain this to me. Jagdeep Bajwadia, you all know him as a sleep doctor, and he did a good job of explaining this at one of our meetings in the past. But these new technology, they don't measure your breathing. Okay, there's no nasal cannula. Okay, WatchPat's the same way. How does it work? These type of technologies measure your body's reaction to apnea, and that's correlated with AI. Okay, so when you have an apneic event, things happen to your pulse rate, your heart rate variability, and your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. So you go from sympathetic to parasympathetic, I think is the way it works, because you're no longer asleep. Now you're becoming more awake. And if we can measure the changes, and we do that alongside doing a PSG at the same time for thousands and thousands of studies, we can say, well, when someone has an apnea, this is what happens to that signal. And that's how they work. They don't measure the same things. They measure what happens to other indices when apneas happen. But they become very accurate. And again, compared to itself, it's wonderful. So that's what the PPG signal is. It measures heart rate variability, and it measures pulse oximetry. And I think the next slide is a little bit better. This explains kind of what I just said at a high level. I'll send these slides to anyone, and anybody that wants the more technical data, we can certainly get that for you. But essentially what I said there, it can talk about whether you're in your autonomic nervous system, or it can measure whether you're in parasympathetic nervous system. ANS is when you're asleep, parasympathetic is when you're more awake, and it measures these arousals based on that, along with the heart rate variability and pulse oximetry. So it looks at all those signals, and someone much smarter than me said, when all those things happen, here's an apnea. And then the computers learn through AI how all those work. And it's really cool. And I found it to be, at least compared to itself, works really well for what we're trying to do, which is calibrate dental devices. Is it better than a PSG? I don't know. Because it depends on what the standard is. Is it better than a level 3 recorder? I don't know. But it's better for how we're using it to find, compared to itself, than anything else that's out there by a long shot today in my hands. So it does measure total sleep time, total recording time, wake after sleep onset, some of the things that you get with sleep, which are kind of cool. I don't put a whole lot into that because I'm mostly worried about the AHI. I'm worried about this stuff. I'll come back to that slide. This is out of our new concept sleep manual. These are the things we pull out of the study and put in DS3 for me to look at. So those are the things that when you saw all of them laid out, that's what my staff member takes from here, puts in DS3 for us. I'll come back to that in a second. This is a report. It's pretty standard. It's pretty easy to see, I think. You have your sleep statistics at the top, which you're not going to get with a lot of the recorders because they don't have sleep. How does it measure sleep? It measures it through that parasympathetic, sympathetic relationship, so it knows when you're asleep, and it's validated, FDA cleared to measure that, which is kind of cool. Not like your Fitbit watch saying, "Hey, I'm sleeping well because I'm not moving around." That's over the counter validation. It's not been validated to actually do that. Then you have your respiratory statistics. Notice the little B here at the bottom, PAHI. That's just like if you have a watch pad, it says PAHI. So they have their own approval that their AI works as a correlation from measured against PSG. It gives you an ODI, which is 4%. One thing I'm going to ask them for, if they can give us the ODI 3% in the future, I would like that. Gives your SpO2 readings in minutes and in percentages. And then you can look at your sleep staging with your histograms. I don't even understand the autonomic nervous response balance thing down there, but it's kind of cool looking. And then motion intensity is how much they're moving around. Again, remember, it's your hand. It's not your torso, so that throws it off a little bit. But again, these are what we pull out of it for my data that I look at, and then we scan a copy if I want to look at anything in detail. ODI, AHI, SPO, the minimum, which is LSAT, and percent below 90. We also noted that we sleep efficiency, because I felt like they didn't sleep real well. I may not value the test as much, which is one thing I really love about this. Does he give you that? So if I can look at that and say, hey, I don't think they slept that well, maybe we want to repeat this or something. And then, of course, the time below 90. So those are things we look at. Here's part of our instructions to give the patient. You have this, well, Elaine, I'll let you explain this because I don't even do this part. So this is actually how you, after you've uploaded or prepared it, as Elena mentioned, now we're going to give it to the patient. This is as simple as this is. I'll let Elena explain it, since I don't ever do this.
Yes, it's easy and simple. The Belun Ring comes with the sizer that we measure the size of the patient's finger, the index finger, no matter on which hand. You just pull it and measure it, and we usually write that in our chart so we know. And I'll highly recommend to put it in the patient's chart, that it's always there. Because every Belun Ring come with different arm sizes. We don't give all of those to the patient. We just give the one that has the right fit for the patient. We just put that they come in numbers, and the bigger size is 14. What they recommend is up to the number on the sizer to go with the number a little bit lower, so it fits enough tight, but not too tight, and being comfortable. I just saw on their website that they have that size 14, which is for bigger fingers. We honestly, in this past couple of months that we have used it, we never need that one, but I plan on ordering just to have them in case we need that bigger size. And that's it. Basically, Dr. Yatros, you already explained. We give them the cradle, the Belun Ring, and the charger. They come in a case. I ordered those from the website. It's a case with the size specifically designed to fit, and it's small even for shipping purposes if you need to mail it to the patient.
It's a
Along
little
with the
cloth
instructions.
case. Yeah.
Yes. With the instructions. And one thing to mention here, when we're giving the instructions, we also have a kind of a financial loan agreement that they sign, where we put the date when they need to bring it back, and making sure to let them know to keep it out of reach of animals, because I can tell you that it happened to our first patient that we dispensed the night owl that was chewed by a dog. The same instruction. Yes.
Yeah,
so the same instruction that we're giving them for the dental devices, make sure to let them know, because it can happen. It happened to us. That's why we have that financial agreement that kind of realize what their responsibilities are as well when they need to bring it back.
And I think this is why it's more comfortable, dude, because you basically put that arm on, and then it's for them. And like Elena said, it's important that we note that in the chart, so if they have to come back again, we don't have to measure them again. And it's pretty simple. We also have those bags. Elena came up with a good system. I should have taken a picture of that. We actually have little numbers on all the bags, these little like they're like almost like a key ring. So we know which
Yep.
one device they have, so we can keep track of them that way. So it's a little bit of organization you have to go into, but I want to
If you
go into
have
the
multiple Belun rings, I'll highly recommend labeling them in a way that you can just differentiate them because they all come with a different serial number, which is important.
And so here's the cost. There's a little discount code coming up here in a second, but $249 for the ring itself. And then you have to, each ring you got to activate with a monthly subscription, which you can cancel at any time. So it's not any long-term contracts. So that's 85. Now let me show you how the math works out on this. So we're going to be able to use this on 3 patients a month. Are we all in agreement of that? I mean, I'm not over promising here. We even have, what is it, 7, 8 days of buffer in there. You could probably get.
I lost your sound, Dr. Yatros.
Yeah, Guy, we lost you.
All right. I will go ahead and give him a minute to get that resituated. I think he just logged out and will be logging back in. I imagine that's going to go pretty quick here. Hopefully. That's famous last words, right, guys?
Yeah, he will be right back. I just got a message from him that he's trying to reconnect.
Perfect, perfect. Well, then I'm going to hold you all captive and go ahead and share my screen here. And then I'll hop off as soon as he gets back on. I'm Misha Sloat. Some of you saw me last week. I'm an account executive here at Dental Sleep Solutions. Of course, if anyone has questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. You can also email us at info@dentalsleepsolutions.com. This webinar is going to be recorded. You will all receive a CE certificate. I have dropped the link to sign up for that in the chat. So go ahead and pull up your chat, click that link, fill out your name and email so that we can get you your CE certificates. If you can see my screen here, I do have a QR code. So if anybody has questions for me about dental sleep solutions, about the Belun rings, you can use this QR code to book a meeting with me. I will be giving out a promo code for a free ebook as well. A few more things since Dr. Yatros, I haven't seen him hop back on here yet. So any of you who were here last week with us, we had some really exciting news. We have our DS360 program is relaunching. This is going to be a hands-on, full consulting program that we're really excited about. We'll send a dental sleep mentor to your office. They'll come to your office. We'll do quarterly business reviews with you guys. I won't bore you with all the details, but you will get some of this information in your slides that we'll follow up with your CEs. So you can use this QR code now. I'll also provide that in the slides for you. So if you want more information about this DS360 program, use the QR code, fill out your name, phone number, email, and we'll reach out to you with some more information on that. And let's see, you'll get this slide when I share it with you guys. If you have not already, we have another webinar coming up next month, so go ahead and sign up for that. You can do that the same way you signed up for this one through Eventbrite, through our website. Again, this will be in the slides that I'll send you guys later this week. And then we have an in-person course. So that's going to be really great for anybody just getting started with dental sleep medicine. We're going to have 2 courses this spring in New York. So the first one's going to be April 18th and 19th. You will receive this QR code to sign up for that if it's something you're interested in. Again, if you have questions, feel free to reach out and I'm happy to provide you guys with some more information on that as well. I'll go ahead and share the link for your CE certificates and your the DS360 consulting program in the chat right now. So if you want to use those while we're waiting for Dr. Yatros to pop back in here, Feel free to take that time and fill that out. And excuse me while I look silly trying to find these links.
I'm back.
Perfect timing. I'll go off mute.
I made a very rookie mistake. Y'all can hear me all right?
Yes.
I did not plug my computer in. So it died. So I looked over and I plugged it in the wall, but somehow it wasn't plugged into my laptop. So apologize about that. And then I had to restart it. And anyway, all right. So I was getting to the punchline here and I blew it. So let me try this here. Y'all can see that now. You see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So we agreed we can use this 3 nights, 3 patients a month, maybe more, but I think that's a pretty reasonable assumption, right? So the warranty on the devices is a couple of years. So if you take your capital cost of the devices, which is, $249 divided by 12, that's roughly $10 a month. And then you take your monthly subscription, you take that and divide it by 3 because you can treat 3 patients a month. And then you take your $85 and divide it by 3, that's 28. So if you're doing 3 patients a month with this, it's about $32 a patient. So when I say this is less money per patient than the night owls, even if you were buying the night owls in bulk, where you were getting them at 85 a piece, we were repeat using those on multiple patients. We weren't, one patient instead of multiple patients. It's a third or half the cost of what it was. So not only am I happy with how we're using it, it's less expensive than what we were previously using by a long shot. Patients like it better. It's less staff time because we're not tracking them down and dealing with app issues. It's just all in all a positive experience. So any questions on that slide? Because I'm not, I don't think we're exaggerating anything here because that's only 21 days a month you're using it. The question is, how many do you need? It depends if you're doing 3 patients a month. Okay, well, could you get by with 1? I'd probably buy 2 because there's overlap, so you got to, however many patients a month you're treating, divided by 3 is a good start, and get 1 extra would be what I would say. I mean, the cost is not that much when you look at it. And if you overuse one and you bought too many, it's 85 a month. You can cancel at any time with that. So it's not like a long-term deal on it. And the discount that they're offering, so you go to the mini HST sites where you get them, and if you plug in the code Yatros 10, it looks like they'll give you 10% off of the hardware. The monthly fees, they don't have a lot of wiggle room on that, but so you have to do the monthly fees. But so it's $25 off each until the end of this week, it looks like. So questions on that? I'm sorry about my
Hey guys, the monthly subscription for $85, is that whether it's just one device or
that's
10?
per device. That's per device. But if you go back and look at the slide, Glenn, so that's still $32 a patient if you're treating 3 patients a person with it, right?
Okay.
Because you got your 85 and then you got your $10. If you want to amortize that over 1 year, you can make that $20. You're at $42. I mean, I'm taking the $249 and dividing it by 24 because that's how long I'm expecting those to last, right? So the capital cost is $10 a month. So that's $333 a patient. $85 a month is the subscription. That's $28.33 a patient. So it's roughly about $32 a patient if you're using it on 3 patients. Even if you only used it on 2 patients, that's still, it's $95. It's still $47.50 if you're only using your Belun on 2 patients versus 85 at the least for your night owl. If you're using it on 1 patient a month, that's the same price as you were paying for a night owl if you bought 1 at a time. So it's less expensive unless you're, I guess unless you're not treating anything. If you're doing any dental sleep at all, it's less expensive than the night owl. We will buy night owls if they come back for the patients that it's convenient to use them on when they I mean, I'm totally out of them. For the patients, I got a few patients going up north for the summer. We'll do that, but we are not going to switch back. My staff, certain things you got to what fight you want to fight, and my staff would revolt if I decided to switch back to the night owls. This is far less hassle for them than it was before. All right. What other questions? I'll put this code back up here again.
We have a few in the chat.
Okay.
Doc.
All right, let's get to those. I'll leave this up. I just want to reemphasize. Did you already go over these courses here?
I did. I tried to use the time that you
Perfect.
were down to go over
All
those
right.
courses. Yes.
I'll leave this up then. Let's get into any questions. Elena's still on here, I hope, too. Sorry about that, everybody. I hadn't done that in a long time, but I'm back. I'll stay on as long as we need to. So what are the questions here? Can I get to them? Is there a charge to the patient? I'll get to that one, then I'll get to yours, Holly, after that. You can do what you want. I know that Rich used to charge for the night owls. If you want us to test you, that's $150 more. I never did that because most patients will choose not to do it. And then I send them back to the doctor, and the doctor goes, well, it's not good enough. Come back, let's calibrate them. We get in a big circle. And I want to do the best job I can for my patients. And for $32 a patient, plus some staff time, I'm going to be the best guy to go to. Our office is going to be the best office to go to around. We're going to deliver the best care. People see a lot of value in what we're doing with this too. They realize we're not just slapping a piece of acrylic in their mouth and saying, good luck to you. So I don't charge it. I include it in my global fee. That's why I want it to be inexpensive, because I'm not charging more for it. And it is inexpensive. I mean, $32 is, we give mutes away for $15. I mean, I think 32 is almost, it's pretty negligible. All right, Holly, you said, have you seen any issues with not getting enough recording time on patients who wear the Belun Ring? I don't think I have. Elena, have you?
We have not had any issue. I mean, we do not give them to keep it and be tested more than 7 nights. We really try to keep them on a weekly basis to have it for 7 nights.
Guy, I'll just pipe in. I'm comparing that to the night owl. You know how the night owl would have how much percentage of the night was bad, basically?
Oh, yeah. We're not, we don't see near as much of that. Now, you do have to, it doesn't spit that out intuitively to you, by the way. It's here. Let's see, there's maybe more on this one. It'll have like gray areas. Like there's one. There's not good data. My screenshot's not good on that, but it'll have bad data there. And my staff knows if they see a bunch of this to let me know, but I haven't seen any that have a bunch of it. So I have far less bad data. I think it's because of the way it's on there. If you look at the ring itself, it kind of braces on the other finger, and it just doesn't spin around, and I don't have near as much issue with I know exactly what you're talking about. The night owl, you'll have one that comes in, and the way it is, you see how this kind of braces on the finger beside it? So
Right.
it goes on one finger, but it keeps it from spinning around on the other one. And I don't have near the ones that says insufficient data 50% of the night or something like that. No.
Okay, cool.
We're not having near any of that I know of. Have we, Elena? So she's asking about the inefficient data. It doesn't give you a number on that, but I think it's because they don't have an issue with it for the most part. It does disclude it if it's in there, but it's just not enough to even worry about it most nights. All right. Let's see what other questions we have here. I'll put this back on this one here for everybody in case they want the code. All right. Charge the patient. Is there anyone needs to drop off? Oh, thank God. That's Beach wrote that one.
That one's me.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, I think you can probably go ahead and purchase the 5. I don't know if you have to activate them all. Michael, if you want to get the discount, I think you can't use them until you activate them. So, but you can go ahead and get the additional ones and not activate them, I would think. Misha, you might want someone to reach out to him and ask them that, but I think what it says, you have to have the subscription to use them, but you could probably go ahead and purchase them and then activate another one later. And I think one of your questions was, do they offer a demo model? Not that I know of, but that's a good way to get a demo model too. You have one you haven't activated yet, and you could show it to them if you wanted to, and then activate it when you want. I assume that would be okay.
Michael, I think we can make that happen. I'm going to email you directly though, just to make sure. And absolutely, you're right, Dr. Yatros.
Yeah, and by the way, we negotiated a discount from where they already were on their pricing when we met them. So their pricing we didn't get a ton off. We got a little bit off on the ring, but the monthly subscription was more, and we were able to convince them to give a little bit less on that to help, with the members and the dentists that we work with. So it was a big process of testing all this out, trying to find the best, and then trying to find ones that could be reasonable to use too, for the patients.
So to your point, Guy, that the monthly subscription will not start until you activate it. Is that what I'm understanding?
Correct. I mean, and then you have a month from the time you activate it, and then it'll start charging you monthly for it.
Okay.
If you can quit it at any time. I don't think they'd want you turning it on and off 100 times. I think that might become an issue. But you once you get the ring, you have to activate it before you're charged. There's a process with that on the website to do that. You have to go on and pay for the monthly subscription. It goes at 30 days. They were originally having contracts with this too, by the way. And we, said, hey, look, we know these dentists are going to use these. They're going to love it. Let's don't lock people into contracts, make them afraid to try it out. And so for, $249 and $85 to try it, it's pretty reasonable. I mean, if you don't like it for some reason, you can turn it off, but I don't think you're going to, because if you need something to calibrate your dental devices, you're going to be very happy with it. Email you once this is confirmed. Any other questions, thoughts, technically? I mean, Elena's on here if you have any technical questions. Thank you, Elena, again for being on here. Anybody else? Any other thoughts? Anybody? Go ahead.
Guy Chuck Tozer here. Wondering if we can get a copy of your slides. I had a hard time with some of them coming across for me.
Absolutely. When you, as soon as I'm done here, I'm going to send them to Lindsay. Is that right, Misha, or do you want them?
You can send them to either of us, whichever's easiest. I will be getting out to you this week.
Yeah, Lindsay asked for them, and Joe, when you click on whatever she gave you when I was learning about electricity and charging my computer back up, when you get your CE, when you ask for that, she will send you a copy of all these slides.
Thank you.
It'll be a PDF because that way it'll download easier. But I'm going to make the PDF and send it to DSS as soon as I'm finished tonight. Any other questions about Fast Track in general, taking the bite? Anybody that's new that we lost? And I know I went through that fairly quickly, but that's for review for most of you.
Doctor, I have one coming in here. What's the fee for the sleep treatment in general? So in your experience?
Well, so that's a really good question, but there's not a straightforward answer. There's a bill, what we bill, and then what we collect. And those oftentimes don't equal like they do in a dental office. So if you're going to bill for medical insurance, then you need to talk to somebody who knows what you should bill in your area, because what you can't do is bill one person more and another person less. So oftentimes we raise our billable amount up to the most anybody will pay in our area so that we capture that when we can. And then if, other carriers provide less or allow less, then we come in underneath it. So you really need to learn where the high end of what you want to bill if you're going to bill medical insurance. If you're not going to bill medical insurance, then really it comes down to your office overhead, how much time it takes you, how much your lab bill is. I really can't tell you that because I don't know your overhead and what you're charging. I can tell you I've sat down and done consulting with lots of offices throughout the years. A lot of courses we've gone to, and we've done the experiment of looking at your office overhead, maybe by extrapolating it from other procedures that you do and what you charge for those and what your lab bills are and how much time it may take you. And we can kind of figure out if it takes you this amount of time, here's your lab bill. You want to make the same amount of money. Here's what you should charge for a cash patient. And most of the people that I've sat and done that with, the fee has come, and again, it's based on their overhead, their lab bill, their time, and what they charge per hour, has come in below 1,500, maybe slightly, 1,200, maybe on the low end, but most of the time around $1,500 to as high as $3,000 that people want to collect to make them happy to do this. So it really depends on your actual office about it, but it's probably in that range. I'd say, you know, if it's the bell curve, the majority of the people would be in that $2,000 to $2,500 range, and it has some people that could be happy doing $1,500. Some people need to charge $3,500 to make it worth their while in their offices because they may have more overhead. Maybe you have a big loan. Maybe you just built a new office with granite countertops. I don't know these things. So you have to figure out. So you're welcome, Michael.
Thank you.
Yep. Anything else?
The answer I believe should be yes, but if you want to elaborate, does the sleep physician read the Belun sleep data like a diagnosis?
Well, for the purposes of what we're talking about tonight, no. Okay, this AI generates these numbers. Elena has trained people that they pull that data off, and I look at this. These patients are already diagnosed that we're treating, and we're using this to calibrate the dental device's best position. That being said, you can use this ring for a diagnosis, but we as dentists cannot make a diagnosis because we're dentists, right? So if you want to use this ring for diagnosis, you have to work with a sleep physician who will read that data, interpret it, and give a diagnosis. If you're going to bill insurances, that usually is not a good idea because insurances won't cover it. We can talk about that in detail if you don't understand that. But if you want to use this for diagnosis, and we recommend it for fee-for-service patients, especially if you're first starting out in dental sleep and you're wanting to kind of get going and don't want to deal with all the insurance, there are ways of you'll pay a physician to render a diagnosis from the Belun Ring that we hand our patients. And if you want to know more about that, contact Dental Sleep Solutions. We have partners for that. We're actually working with another partner to try to solidify a better system and cost for you for doing that to make that very streamlined. But it is possible, but you as a dentist can't make a diagnosis. You still have to get this data to a physician who can make that diagnosis. And if you're going to do insurance, you probably, a lot of insurances say that if you do it that way, we won't pay you for the dental device. Yes, the other question that came up, if you look at the slides when they come, Daniel, I looked at a lot of different things. I looked at over-the-counter things, well-u rings, a lot of things I didn't list. The finalists were this Belun Ring, Sleep Image Ring, Wesper. Those are all good devices. Like the companies, you know, I think Wesper is a great device for diagnosis purposes. The company, the people I really like. The reason we selected this one was because of the ease of use for the patient, the ability for the patient not to have to use an app, and they can just put it on their finger and put it back, and the cost per patient for a week of testing. All those things came into why this was the best for calibrated dental devices. If you're looking for strictly a diagnostic instrument, this works great too, but there's other ones out there. But for calibration, we spent about 100 hours of our time, your time, into the hundreds of hours researching, trying different devices. And this one works by far the best in 2024 of February for calibrating dental devices in our 3 sleep practices. Yes, do you want me to show you that someone wants to see how to take the bite? I mean, I'm happy to do that if someone wanted to see that. I do have the slide for that. Okay.
Yes, that just came.
Well, let me make sure I got the sound on here too. Do you want to? I'll show you. And any more specifics about the Belun Ring before I show that? Okay, let me show you. Oh, I want to thank my team too. Thank you, Elena, and the team, because they, you know, one thing I still do for Dental Sleep Solutions is as a senior advisor, we like to be in the forefront of new developments in dental sleep, try to find the best things for our patients to use, and then share that with Dental Sleep Solutions so that you all can provide the best care and try to get a lot of the. I mean, if every one of you had to go do all the hassle that I went through and my team in particular went through with this, why should we all recreate the wheel? That's why being a DS3 member, if you're not a DS3 member, you should look at being one, because we help all the systems and we help streamline them by treating thousands of patients over the last 20 years. So thank you, Elena and the team, for helping out with this. All right, so here's the way you take a digital bite. All right, and then I'll show you if someone wants to see it with non-digital. Oh, hit the button too quick.
Hello, I'm
Can
Dr.
you all hear
Guy
that?
Yatros from Dental Sleep Solutions, and welcome to this edition of Dental Sleep Medicine Insider Magazine. Today we're going to talk about taking a digital 3D bite. We've been using a scanner for about 4 or 5 months now. We have the CareStream 3600, and Elena can attest that we're having a lot better luck when we seat our cases, a lot less to adjust. The patients really love the scanner without having to take impressions. It's quite impressive as well. But one of the questions that keeps coming up is, how do we take the 3D bite? Some people will be proponents of using bite registration material, cutting it away and taking the bite that way. But we've found that that step's likely not necessary in most cases. We're just going to use a George gauge, hold the patient in the protrusive bite that we've predetermined, and then we're just going to marry the two images together with our scanner. So Jane's nice enough to let us do this with her today, and I'm going to have her just bite down on the George gauge in the position that we've already determined, which is about end to end for her. Taking to be real careful to make sure that she's not biting to the left or right. Do you feel like that your bite's in the middle? Mm-hmm. And then we're going to take the scanner, and without any material, we're going to marry the two devices, the images together. And it plays really cool music while we're doing this. There's one side.
So we don't have any bite registration on there. We just put it in the position, and you can use airway metrics gauges. You can probably use a pro gauge. Pro gauge is a little fatter. It gets in the way.
That's all there is to it. I like to make sure that we get molars, at least the first molar when we get the two images, and the software will marry the two together.
And so that's probably the last bite I ever took, because my staff does this, by the way. My team's great at this, but basically put the George gauge in there, get it where you want it, airway metrics, and then at least with our scanner, we have an iTero now too that we use. It works fine without any registration material. Here's the way I recommend you take the bite if you're still using impressions. I do not recommend you put the material on the bite fork and have them bite into it, because they'll bite left and right. You get them biting where you want, and then you just take and you squirt the material around the fork like this. You do instead of putting the material on the fork and having them bite into it, they'll bite left, right, and every which way. This is much more predictable back when I did the bite. So, all right, well, let me. I think I'll stop sharing that. I don't know the cost of the CareStream scanner off the top of my head. That video was what, Elaine, 3 or 4 years ago. You're muted, but
Yes.
yeah,
I would say more than 4 years ago.
4 years ago. We're in the process of actually looking at scanners, and we're going to buy 2 new ones this year, and we're trying to figure out which one we want to get. So any other questions here? I said I'd stay on as late as possible, but I'm not trying to keep you late if we're done. Did I miss anything?
Don't think so.
All right. Well, if they have any questions, did you want to drop that in the chat one more time where they would send questions to, and mini HST is where you get your device. Again, the discount code, I think we had it up there plenty of time. Do that before Saturday, it looks like, through till the end of the day or something Friday, and you get at least 10% off. That's certainly worth doing it now instead of waiting. I promise if you're looking for a way to calibrate your devices, or you're looking for a replacement for Night Owl, you and your team have a little bit of a learning curve, but once you get through that, it's not much of one. You're going to be a lot happier with how these Belun rings work. So, all right. Well, I guess then we'll shut it down unless anybody else has anything.
I had 2 more come in. If you can pull up the
sure.
chat there.
Okay, the last one, I don't do a baseline test when they come in. We do the baseline test the last night of the 7 nights. So the only time I would do a baseline if they came in would be if they didn't have a sleep test, in which case we're probably getting them to a sleep doctor. If you want to use it for a diagnostic, then yes, we got to send it to a physician to have read, but I don't like treating patients without diagnosis. So we do the baseline the last night of the actual 7 nights. And by the way, do we have a recording of this too, Misha?
Of tonight?
Yeah.
Yes,
So
tonight
I
is
think
recording.
if someone really wanted to see this, you have a staff member or something, I think they could probably give you a link to it for some period of time if you've gone on a little late and missed something here too. So by the way,
Absolutely.
sure, now you probably can't get CE, but you can certainly get someone else to watch it. Last one here is, where's the question?
Jennifer Joyce, does the Belun
Oh.
have the ability to have a telehealth visit to have patient get an RX for
So
their sleep test?
Belun itself is the ring. Okay, that's just the testing device. We are working with a company, which will probably have another webinar in the next 4 to 6 weeks, who is going to do exactly that. We've had other companies we've worked with, but this company I'm really quite pleased with for their fees, what they charge. And so they're going to work with us and the Belun or what other sleep testing devices you might have, to where if you have a patient that comes in, you need to get a diagnosis, they can get a telemedicine visit with a doctor for a fee. Sometimes they'll be covered by insurance, but otherwise it's a fee. That doctor can order the test. You can hand them your Belun ring. They can be tested that way. The doctor will read the results, give you a prescription and letter of medical necessity. All things you need to bill insurance. So yes, the answer is stay tuned. There are places out there to do that now, but it's not as streamlined as we'd like it to be. And with the new technology, the Belun Ring, we're working with a company to try to streamline that whole process. So good question.
Good. And then last one, what devices do you like best with the calibration markers? I think that just came in.
Yeah, any device that you can easily tell where you are. So we do a lot of Herbst devices because we're Medicare, and TAP devices work well too. But if we're doing Herbst, I like the ones that have the slide on the side, the Herbst Advance, that we can see where they are. If you like Pantera devices and the arms are interchangeable, those work great because you know where you are. EMAs are great because you know, hey, you have a 21 band, a 20 band, and so forth. We do, Serena Sleeps because it's AX or AY. People like ProSomnus. Those work well too because you know where you are. What you don't want are the old style Herbsts where you're turning it and it's kind of unclear if you turned it 10 times, what you actually turned it. And if you can't repeat that, then you'll have this data. And when you tell them to go back to a certain position, it's unclear how to get back to that position. So any device that you can definitively tell where you were each night and goes 5 or more millimeters is fine for this process that you like. Oh yes, looks like the recording's coming as well, so that's good. Does Belun have any recordings that can help us read the reports? Probably, but I'm certain, Misha, that may be a to-do list for Dental Sleep Solutions that we should make one.
I will find out.
Yeah, if they don't have it, we'll make one. Elena can make it. I can make it. We'll make one readily available. The reports are pretty straightforward, but I know they can be intimidating. So we can certainly help you with that. All right. All right.
That's the last thing I saw come in.
All right. Well, I think it's been a success. I hope you all get started with them again for $249 minus 10%. So what, 225 or so, whatever that comes out a piece. You really aren't risking much, and I promise you'll like it. If you have questions, contact info. They'll get a hold of me if they can't answer the questions. I'm available as well. So hope to see you at one of my courses in the coming future and on one of our webinars. And if you have any more questions, let us know. And thanks for your time tonight. Thank you, Elena, for your help, and Misha, your help as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Christine, I think she already jumped off, but thank her as well. All
I
right.
sure will.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you, guys.